guys, this is Tina. Welcome back to my channel. So I am here today for another one of our mass making sessions, and what I thought we could do today is focus on using up some really teeny bits of scraps and things from our desks and, well, anywhere else that you keep your scraps, obviously, by making some teeny weeny tags. I mean, I think they're just a cute thing to have on hand, to be honest, in your stash, and this is an excellent way to just use up really tiny little sections of scraps, which, I mean, if you're anything like me, you probably have got little sections of paper like this, which, you know, what kind of things are they going to be useful for? Why I've even kept them, it's just beyond me. But I thought what we could do is make some little tiny tags, and I will give you a couple of ideas how I would use them towards the end of the video. So if you're joining in, what you're going to need is just obviously any old scraps of paper. You know, they really can be pretty tiny pieces this week because the pieces that we're going to be making are going to be teeny. And then you might want to get some sheet music, some book page, things like that, either to make your tiny tags from or to decorate your tags, you know, towards the end, if that's the type of thing that you like to do. You're also going to need some stiffer sort of card to be able to back your tags onto, again, if you like your tags quite stiff. If you're happy with them sort of thinner, then you may just, you know, use something like some coffee dyed paper or something like that to back them onto. I mean, I have to say I'm a little bit, you know, obsessed, and I quite like them quite thick. But having said that, you could use sections of, like, say, book page, you know, where you've got like the bottom where you've got a bigger blank part. If you're using something like card, you know, I mean, this is 160 GSM, so it's not really thick, but obviously if it were then glued onto this book page, that would be thicker, if that makes sense, you know, thick enough. So however you want to back your tags will be, you know, depending on what the front of your tags are made from, if that makes sense. But I think anyway. You'll also need obviously some glue, some scissors, some ink if you want to ink your pieces up, and anything else that you want to decorate them with. I'm going to also take use a crocodile, and also I will be using, you know, some of those hole reinforcers. So, well, I say that, now I can't see them. Hang on, let me just grab them. They're normally hung up on my back wall, and now, here we go. Right. Oh my gosh, they're all literally clipped together, so hold on a moment. So some hole reinforcers like that. And again, as I say, I will be using my crocodile to punch my holes. I think that's everything. And as usual, I'm just going to talk you through a couple. I mean, not that, you know, literally not that there's anything to make in these whatsoever. They're like the most easy peasy thing on the planet. But just so you get the gist of what we're doing. So for instance here, I'm just going to take that tiny section like that. And then, you know, again, obviously it's up to you if you want to keep the rest of your book page or bin it. I really should be binning mine because, again, I shouldn't really be hoarding things in this way. And then all I'm going to do is glue down to my decorative paper. Now, this is my freebie background papers, and I've actually printed this out with a printed background. So, I mean, it's, you know, double-sided effectively. But that's fine. I'm just gluing this down. So again, let me just see whether I've got my spreader. And by my spreader, I really mean my Costa card. Oh, no, can't see it anywhere. Why does this happen every time I do a video? Here we go. Hotel key from last year's holiday. So works just as well as a Costa card. Right, so just going to trim down my tag now, and then obviously trim it off to size. And obviously the beauty of these, you know, you really can make them teeny weeny depending on what sort of size scraps that you've got, like that. Obviously cut that round, you know, just so you've got a rectangular sort of piece. And then obviously just cut your corners in. Now if I'm making big tags, I do that trick where you cut one corner and then you take it off and sort of mirror it the other side. Personally, when I'm making smaller tags, I don't worry really to that extent because I think they're pretty tiny. You know, I don't think they're going to be really very apparent whether they're, you know, matching triangle corners or not, to be honest. That's just probably me, and yeah, probably just shouldn't really be sloppy like that. Now, I quite like, when I make these little tiny tags, I quite like something just like a piece of book, sheet music running down the middle. So I'm just going to take that and just run that down like that. Okay. And then just again dab that off a little bit. And then obviously going to punch my hole at the top. Okay, now what I normally do is, as you can see, this is a clean sheet of the hole reinforcers, and what I like to do normally is just take a whole sheet and just ink them up. So I've got them all inked up, ready to use. You know, and it's quite nice to have some that are darker than others because, you know, sometimes you might want them darker and sometimes lighter. But, you know, I don't worry about it at all. I mean, as you can see, that took like 30 seconds, not even, probably 10 seconds. So then I'm just going to take a dab of glue. Again, I mean, that's just me. Obviously, these are adhesive, you know, hole reinforcers anyway, but I like to just make sure that they're really stuck down. So I just take a little bit of glue and then I just pop that down like that. Okay, so we just dab that off like that. So that's your tag, and then again just ink it up like that. And I mean, straight away you can see that sheet music now blends in, whereas before it was obviously looking like a, you know, sore thumb on there and not really looking too fantastic. Now you're probably wondering what you would use these for. The things that I would use these for is, I mean, obviously sometimes you have a teeny weeny pocket, so they're just, you know, perfect for that. Or I quite like normally attaching these to a larger tag, so you've got like a double tag. I think is, you know, something really nice to do. And obviously it's up to you how much you decorate your tags. But obviously for the purpose of the mass making, I'm not going to decorate mine. I'm just going to leave them pretty plain and just make a whole bunch of teeny ones, you know, ready to use. And then they're ready to use, and when I come to use them, I will obviously decorate them up how I want them. But that's just, you know, to give you a sort of rough idea of the first one. So obviously I've got the rest of that piece of paper there. So again, you know, I may like to now do a couple along here, and then that's just clearing that whole sheet of paper. And then, for instance, this one, I might just now make just like a long skinny tag like that. So then what I could do is, I've got here some coffee dyed paper, which obviously is from something else that I've been making, and I'm just going to glue that down like that. Okay. And obviously this paper, although obviously it's part of my vintage notes kit, it's obviously plain on the other side. So, you know, I'm just effectively using up offcuts that I haven't used, if you see what I mean, and going straight over the pattern side, and then the, you know, reverse side is then plain. So that's that one. And I might as well do my other couple. So this one, for instance, here, I can just fit onto actually the bottom of some book page. Not that one, because I don't think that's quite wide enough, but this one here, possibly. So again, just... Have I gone mad? Is that literally the same paper, isn't it? So clearly that other one would have been wide enough. Oh, sometimes you just don't know what goes on, do you? Well, I don't know what goes on is what I am saying. Oops, and that's now stuck onto the book page, so... Oh dear. Not good, is it? And we're at the start of the video, so doesn't bode well for the rest. Okay, so just pressing that down, and clearly this obviously was big enough, so I'm just going to now use that for this one. So just going to take it in slightly narrower, like that. Okay. And again, I mean, this is like one of those perfect, you know, like TV projects, to be honest, because all you'd need is, you know, some pretty tiny scraps, your glue, your scissors, and just like a big flat surface, like a tray or, you know, maybe a hardback book or something to lean on. And you could then be, you know, watching TV with the family whilst doing these. So, yeah, I think they're quite an ideal TV project. Okay, we just trim that down. And again, you know, I'm just trimming in slightly, so as hopefully to catch anywhere that the glue hasn't gone. Again, just trim the corners off. Okay, we'll just do the next one. Like that. Okie dokie. So, I mean, these are probably like the most dead easy thing on the planet, really. But, you know, you sometimes do have pockets that are quite tiny. And then, do you know what? I'm going to be really rigid and good and bin these, all of these bits, in fact. Get myself a clean sheet of book page to ink up against. Yay, look at me chucking out some stuff. Wow. Yeah. So they are obviously the, you know, the world's most easy sort of DIY ephemera type thing. But I do think you sometimes have those pockets which are tiny and you just need something tiny to put in there. So they're just like another thing to have in your stash ready to go, ready to use. You know, because I think you can never have enough things actually in your stash. And, oh, I must stop now putting my crocodile away, because otherwise I'm just going to be opening and closing that drawer for the entire video. So I'll keep it out this time. So again, just punch all of your holes. And as I say, you know, it's up to you how you decorate these. I mean, this one personally, I think looks just lovely as it is. So I would maybe not even sort of decorate it at all. I mean, you could always put something like maybe a little word that I just happen to have here to the side. You could just do something really simple like that. You know, it doesn't really kind of need anything too much on there. You could use maybe like a sort of book plate or something, you know, and once they're inked up, obviously then they're going to look sort of similar colours. So, you know, just play around with what you think, but ultimately really what we're doing is just getting our base pieces made, and you know, so that you can pull them out of your stash and then just quickly decorate them up when you need some skinny tags or anything else. So, you know, and it's quite a good way to use up the smaller pieces from your scraps. I don't know why even, you know, why would I even hang on to those tiny pieces is beyond me, to be honest. But, you know, I'm sure I'm not alone. I think we all do. Because when I see other people's scrap boxes or scrap bins, you know, in their videos, we all seem to be the same. We all have those same, whoops, those same endless supplies of teeny weeny bits of paper. Yep. Why we do that is just beyond me. So again, these are just backed onto that sort of fly sheet. Well, it's not fly sheet, it's the bottom of obviously the pages, but I'm just going to leave those like that, not even sort of bothering with the sheet music piece, because again, you know, it's nice to have maybe some with some decorative elements and, you know, some without, i.e. some with the sheet music, some without. And then obviously tie them in at the time when you come to use them. So again, here for instance, this is some of my Ring of Roses kit, and you know, this is obviously where I've been printing it out, trying to get it right. So I mean, these are just on copy paper, which I wouldn't necessarily now be likely to use, but I can now just trim down, you know, parts and make these teeny tags with the parts. So I might do a couple of tags with this one. Let me just trim that down. I'm just going to trim that off so as I get rid of that rosebud. And again, just do the same there. So that's like a couple of teeny weeny bits there. And then really what I should do now is be rigid and get rid of that, because, you know, as I say, I'm not necessarily going to use that on paper. And then again, because these are just on copy paper, they're quite flimsy. So for these ones, I may prefer to back them onto something a little bit thicker. So again, I did bring along some thicker bits, and I've got here some printed, you know, coffee dyed print background. So just trim that edge off where the printer sucked it through in that weird way, but I'm just going to glue that down like that. So what I'm going to do now, before I just shut up talking about, you know, the methods that we're actually using, is I'm just going to glue a load on to this sheet, and then I will cut them out afterwards. So almost like a sort of, what do you call it, assembly line. I'm doing all the same parts at the same time, if you see what I mean. So if you've got a large sheet of maybe coffee dyed card, or, you know, something plain that you would use for the back of your tags, you could get all of your tiny scraps like this. Let me just check I'm in frame and I'm filming. So all of your tiny scraps like this, and just cover the entire sheet of paper, and then obviously cut them out afterwards. And that might be quite a sort of good method of doing this. So yeah, I'm just going to obviously take some of these little bits and chop them down. So I've got a few different sort of size tags. You know, some are sort of bigger than others. But I'm not worried about how straight or anything else they are, because obviously when I come to use them, I will then, you know, cut them down then. So, okay, so I will be quiet now about the obviously methods that we're using, because of course, you know, it's not rocket science, and I'm sure that you've got the gist there. Yeah, so I hope everyone's having a good day. Hope you're doing some crafting, even if you're not, you know, mass making or doing this project along with me. But touch wood, you know, hopefully you're all still enjoying the mass making. It is pretty cool, pretty handy to have a bunch of stuff ready to use. I mean, I don't necessarily use the mass made sort of items, you know, in every project, but sometimes even if you just grabbed one or two extra things to bulk your journal out, it's just really handy and really nice to have a few things ready made, isn't it? So hopefully you guys are finding the same thing. It's a really nice day here, although as I've just gone to say that, the sun's gone in, but no, it's a really nice day, and it's actually not even particularly cold. It's lovely and sunny and bright, really nice, which is just so needed because my gosh, it's just done nothing but rain lately. It's been just hideous, literally hideous. So I hope that you guys are having better weather wherever you are. Trying to think what else I have been up to. Can't say as there's anything particularly exciting, but I went to see The Invisible Man this week with my sons, obviously not with my daughter, so my husband stayed at home with her. He doesn't really like, I don't know really whether you'd call it a horror film or a thriller, but he doesn't really like films like that, so I just went with my sons. It was a 15, so my oldest son, obviously he's 17, so he was fine. My younger son is 13, so a bit naughty really taking him, but he does look a bit older, so luckily he was able to get in. And I know that I've had this conversation before. I mean, I don't really mind him watching things because actually I think these days you can switch on the news and see even worse stuff, you know, than you can see in a film, to be honest. And what can you say? That stuff's going on in the real world, so you know, at least these are just movies, aren't they? So anyway, I digress now, going off on a tangent, trying to justify why I thought it was appropriate to take him. Anyway, it was quite a good film. It was quite scary. I know that we've talked about this before. Horror films, I often find they're not that scary because they kind of verge on the ridiculous sometimes. Where that film, it was scary in that way of, oh my gosh, this could kind of happen. I'm not saying it could happen because, I mean, this guy has developed something to make himself invisible, so I'm not saying that part of it could happen, but whilst he was invisible, the stuff he was then doing was very scary indeed. So just got a little scrap there. Yeah, so it was good from that point of view because it was like, oh my gosh, how terrifying. Because I mean, sometimes I think scary stuff is more about the imagination, isn't it? And not necessarily seeing everything in its full gory glory. Gory glory? Yeah, not necessarily seeing it in its full gory glory, but sometimes more about what you've not really able to see. And that film was a little bit more like that. Not for all of it, but just one or two scenes that you're like, oh my gosh, that is terrifying. So yes, it's good. Again, I'm just going to cut this down so that, you know, I don't want to have like a sort of butterfly wing or something, because then I feel that's going to be weird, you know, and would be hard to cover up. So I'm just going to do it like that. So, I mean, as you can see, you can use up quite a lot of scraps here. And, you know, this sheet, oops, I mean, I don't know how many I've stuck down. And because I'm obviously talking and gluing and thinking about what I'm going to be waffling on about next, I obviously can't stop to actually count them. But, you know, by the time that we've stuck pieces all over, we're going to have a fair few here. So it's pretty good. Pretty good way of using some scraps. So I've got this here from some of my collage pages. So I might just take that section. I mean, to be honest, I might even, right, I'm trying to think how to get like the bulk. Actually, you know what I should do? Cut that butterfly out to use. So I think what I'll do is do a tag there and tag here. And then I can cut that butterfly out to use. Or actually, could just make that into a tag. That's really nice, isn't it? Just like on its own like that. yeah. Okay. I mean, obviously spring is like round the corner. It's shocking how fast this year is going. It'll be here before we know it. Okay. So I'm just going to try and do these so that I can get like the maximum out of my page here. Oh, I might just have to do it like this, to be honest. Then I can always use something else for some other ones, can't I? So I did bring along a few plain things to put on the backs, but there we go. Okay. Go for this one. Okie dokie. So my son passed his theory test this week, so he's, you know, for his driving test. So he's really pleased, because until you pass your theory test, you're not allowed to apply for your proper test, you know, your actual driving test. So obviously that's been, you know, like holding him up. I'm not sure that he's quite ready for his actual test. But, you know, kind of like, even if he were ready, he can't apply for it until he's actually passed his theory test. So that's a really good thing to have out of the way. So, yeah, he's chuffed to at least now be sort of heading in the right direction, because otherwise you're just like waiting until you've actually passed that section or that part, you know, before you can even kind of progress anyway. You know, even if you were like the best driver on the planet, you still couldn't go and take your test because you haven't passed your theory. So that's like a really good thing to have done. I mean, some of these are printed onto like slightly thicker card, like this collage sheet. It's on 160 GSM, weirdly, but different brands seem to, although you'd imagine 160 GSM is 160 GSM, sometimes it feels thicker than others. So, you know, you might be happy to just use yours like that. I mean, it's okay. I feel it's quite flimsy, but, you know, sometimes flimsy is better, because obviously if your journal's not a really big bulky one, you might not want a really big stiff tag. You know, so again, just play around and sort of do the things that you sort of fancy. Now I'm just going to cut this down in rough at the moment to make it easier for cutting the tags, if that makes sense, because all the time it was just that huge piece of paper I was, you know, it's quite cumbersome to cut out. Right, so we're just going to cut some out here. Okay. I mean, yeah, these are unusual for me in that they're a tiny piece, and I know that I've said before, I mean, me and tiny, we just don't really go together. So these are as fiddly as a tiny thing would be for me, if that makes sense. You know, I wouldn't necessarily do very much else that's tiny, but these are manageable because they're not like really, really tiny. I think it's Jenny Miller, I think, who does things, and she makes minuscule things, like teeny weeny things, are like amazing teeny weeny things. Like, she'll make like a mini journal, and then inside her mini journal she'll have like a mini envelope. So I mean, I'm talking titchy, And then inside the mini envelope, she'll have a mini journal. So she's got like a mini journal with a mini envelope and an even tinier mini journal inside the envelope. I think it's her. I used to watch her all the time, and then I don't know whether she stopped uploading for a while, but I don't know. Sometimes I wonder whether, like, you know, on your subscriptions page, I don't know whether you necessarily always get notified about people when they upload videos. It's weird. But anyway, if you haven't checked her out, I think she's the one who makes the really tiny things. So it's worth going over and having a look, but especially if you're somebody who likes to make tiny things. I mean, I just watch in awe thinking, oh my goodness, how does she make such tiny stuff? I am not watching because I think, oh, I'm going to go and make one of those, because, you know, my gosh, it would just turn out horrendous with me trying to pull off something tiny and minuscule like that. But if you like, you know, making tiny things, then she's got some fantastic things. And again, she's got this really grungy sort of eclectic style that just is amazing. Like, there's not a single section of her work that's not decorated up. It's just incredible. So, yeah. I mean, we're so lucky, aren't we? I know we've talked about this before as well, but, you know, to have YouTube, it's such a fantastic resource, isn't it? Because isn't it amazing to be able to share everybody's work the way we do? Because everyone's work is so incredibly different. And, you know, she can really do these amazing, incredible, teeny weeny projects. You know, Sagita, for instance, she does those incredible, grungy kind of amazing things. Jennifer at Touch of Sparkle, I mean, she does the most like flouncy, lacy, feminine, beautiful, just fantastic, amazing things. You know, so I think everyone's got like a niche and a kind of like area that they're just incredible at doing, aren't they? So it's just so fantastic for us that we can share this and sort of get inspiration from other people's work the way we do. You know, we're so lucky. Okay. Right, so as you can see, you know, that's taken me a little while to even cut all of those tags out because there were so many stuck onto that page. So I'll count them in a moment, but I'm sure you get what I mean. You know, there were a lot of tags on that page, so I won't be short of tiny tags now for a while. But yeah, quite often I think you stick something down as a pocket and then you just haven't got anything tiny enough to go in it. You know, so these are just handy to have. Right, let me check I'm filming, I'm in frame. Oh, we're already up to like 35 minutes. The time just whizzes by. Okay, so I'm just going to trim my little corners off. That one. And just do that one. And then, you know, just like an assembly line, I'm going to then punch all of the holes in all of them. And do the hole reinforcers for all of them. And then ink all of them up. And then probably it'll be time to decorate one up. Okay. Oops. There we go. Yes, I'm trying to make it my mission at the moment to, I say this and to be honest it's just probably pointless saying it, but just trying to make it my mission to use Instagram a little bit more. I'm so rubbish. I don't think it really helps because my phone is just shockingly rubbish. You know, I'm going to have to buy a new phone because, oh, Mine is just abysmal. I mean, it's not an iPhone or anything like that. Not that I'm saying it needs to be an iPhone to be any good. Because actually, you know, I hear people moaning about their iPhones too. But what I mean is, you know, mine is just very old and rubbish. It's like come to the point where it's losing its charge, and it's so slow when you kind of like press like the screen thing, you know, to open it up to actually do anything. Like if I'm trying to call somebody, it just has this weird delay thing going on, to the point where you then try and press it again, and little do you know, it's like moved on the screen, so you end up hitting somebody else's name and you're phoning somebody else. So it's just, yeah, just appalling, to be honest. And probably desperately should upgrade it, really. But I hate buying things like that. I just find them really boring to look at. And oh, I'd left my crocodile out, hadn't I? Really boring to look at. And you know, like a bit, oh, what do I need, you know. And if I go in with something in my mind, so like I went in to look at some phones and I had something in my mind that I thought, right, I'm going to try and get this. So I'd got my son really to help me research, you know, what version of, like, say, an iPhone that I needed. And obviously I can get away with sort of an older one, because I think what I need is like one with more storage capacity, so that I can fit videos on. Because obviously at the moment I just film on my iPad, and when I do flip throughs I film on my camera. So I thought, well, if I have a phone with, you know, a decent camera, which obviously my phone does not have a decent camera, so I would not be able to do filming on my phone. But if I had a phone that was a decent camera and had like a biggish capacity, then I would be able to do films on my phone. I would hopefully then even be able to do them at my sewing machine, because I'd be able to take my sewing machine into the kitchen and do some videos like that. So, you know, I had it planned in my mind exactly what I wanted and what I needed, and it was like, right, I need this much space, I want this sort of slightly older version of the iPhone, you know, because I didn't obviously want to have to pay loads for this super duper new version that has got all sorts of bells and whistles that I don't need. Well, and of course then we go into the shop, you know, and they don't do that anymore. So it was on the website, but of course they don't do it now. So all that research was then a complete waste of time. And you know, I then feel thrown. I'm in the shop and thinking, well, I don't know now what I need. So I just come out of the shop empty-handed again and still haven't upgraded the phone. Because I don't want to make the wrong decision, because you're like tied into a contract. You know, I don't want to kind of think, oh, well, I'll go for such and such. And then think, oh, no, you know, I'm tied into this for like 2 years. With a phone that's constantly running out of space, or, you know, with a phone that's like, I don't know, not got a good quality camera or something like that. So yeah, I ended up just coming out again with no phone. And, you know, everyone's kind of like, oh, mum, you know, you really need to get a new phone because yours is just so awful. And I'm like, well, I know, but what can I do? I don't really know what I'm looking at. And then I decide, and then they don't have it. So then it's like, you know, so I think probably what I'm doing is secretly waiting and hoping that they get a better deal going, like, i.e. an older phone still, but with a decent capacity. Like, I mean, I call it a hard drive because that's what it is on a computer, but I don't think it is a hard drive on a phone, is it? I think they just term it as storage on your phone. Because most of those phones have a tiny little amount of storage. And obviously I know from using my iPad for filming that, you know, a tiny amount's not really going to go anywhere, because, you know, the amount of times that I've had my iPad running out of storage. I couldn't tell you what my storage is on my iPad, but, you know, it's not going to be as small as a phone, I think. So, yeah. Anyway, that's where I'm at with the phone thing. It's very annoying, but yeah, I just think, oh, They're such a dull thing to have to go and look at, aren't they? I mean, my son loves looking at phones and loves reading about them and all of that kind of stuff, but oh, I couldn't imagine anything more dull than having to go shopping for a phone, to be honest. And to be honest, I hardly actually use my phone at all. I'm not someone who's glued to my phone. I know I've said that before, but I don't want to be glued to my phone or anything. So, you know, for me, really, it's all about can I do some videos now on my phone? Will I be able to film at my sewing machine? And obviously you can't really go into the, I mean, Tesco's, that's where I'm getting my phone from, because that's where our contracts are, you know, where my kids' contracts are and things. So you get a bit of a discount. You can't really go in there and say, well, you know, I'm just really wanting it to do my videos, because they'll just think I'm a lunatic. So, right, okay. Okay, so this is my little bunch of tags now. Looking really cute. I'm just going to ink some up like that. Okay. Yeah, perhaps I should go in there again, I don't know, maybe this weekend, see if they've changed their deals, because I think they sometimes change their deals. I'm sure I've heard them say that they change them every month. So I went in there a couple of weeks ago, only to find that, you know, they didn't have this deal that I'd found on the web. So they maybe have changed their deals again now. I'm not saying that that deal will have come back, but maybe they've, because phones are coming out all the time, aren't they? And, you know, little changes and tweaks and things like that. So there might be a possibility that they've got something different going on now. Who knows? This tag's probably a bit big, really, to be classed as a tiny tag, but it's still tiny-ish, you know. To me, it's tiny-ish because I make everything really big, but to some people, this is just probably a regular size tag. I do like a large, you know, a large tag. I think they're really nice. I love the tactile kind of thing about big tags. They're really nice. And I love the fact that you can get lots on them to decorate them up with and things. It's fun. Okie dokie. So, yeah, I've used a few bits of scraps from my desk. I have to say, not as many as I should have done. Hopefully you've seen my trailer now about my series that's starting tomorrow. I hope you're going to join me for it. So I really need your help, guys, in clearing my desk. So hopefully you guys, if you have a similar desk, and I'm not saying that you do, I don't want to insult people by implying that they have anywhere near a similar desk, because that might really offend some people. But yeah, if your desk is anything resembling mine, you know, who knows, maybe you will feel inspired and spurred on to join me in just working with what's on our desk for 7 days straight, you know, and no deviating, no pulling other things in, you know, no, oops, that's not kind of quite the right colour, or that's not the right paper, I'm just going to go and print some more off. Nope, just using those things that are literally in the glory pile that is on your desk. And as I say, I am not suggesting that you have got a glory pile. Maybe you haven't. But if you have, you know, I'd love it if I've actually spurring you on to do that yourself. Right, so these are my little tags that I've made. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab in a bulb pin just to show you, you know, the types of things that I would do with these. So for instance, this one here, I would probably, you know, pin that together like that, just with a little bulb pin there. Oops. And for me, I mean, that, not flower, butterfly, looks quite a good match for those papers. So if I just ink that up a bit, I mean, I had said about using that as a tag on its own, but I won't do now. So I'm just going to fussy cut that butterfly out. Like that. Okay, so just cut that out, and then what you could do is, if you've got, like, say, this paper, which have I binned all of mine? From there, just laying on the top. So what you could do is kind of mimic what's going on here and tear off a little strip and have that down the centre of, like, the underneath. I mean, this really is not particularly big enough, to be honest, so I'm not sure how this is going to look, but obviously, again, I'm just using what I've got to hand. So yeah, I mean, this might look really rubbish because it's just going to be pathetically small, but you know, what you could do is kind of mimic what's going on this one, but on this one. So that then ties in those two papers. So I'll just glue this down like that. Okay. Like that. And I mean, again, obviously that doesn't really need inking because it's just that darkish paper anyway. And then, you know, could pop a butterfly or something on there. Which, you know, is quite nice colour-wise. It ties in quite nicely. So again, I'll just press that down. And then you've got those little cute tags. And I mean, how sweet are they? So if you've got then quite a smallish pocket, you know, they're just absolutely perfect, aren't they, for that type of thing. So that's just, you know, a little idea for the type of thing that you could do with them or how you could use them. I mean, obviously completely up to you, you know, how you would use them. But yeah, I mean, I quite often do put them together, you know, with a bulb pin if they're quite small. But equally, if you've got a little pocket, they might be quite nice in there. So yeah, I just thought I would come on and do these for the mass making, because although they're obviously not, you know, not rocket science, I just think they're quite a useful thing. So let's just count up how many we did, because we always like to do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yay! I think that's probably a record for us. And I think I'm probably a little bit early actually, but yeah, you know, so we'll call it quits, because otherwise if I do a whole nother sheet, we'll be here for about an hour and a half. So yeah. Yeah, so I just think they're something really, really fun and really cute. They use up, obviously, a lot of scraps, because you really do not need very big pieces of paper to make these. You know, you can really just, you know, really use up your tiny bits of scraps. And they're just kind of quite useful to have on hand, I think. So I hope that you like them, and I hope you managed to get some made. And yeah, I hope that you will join me tomorrow for my new series that's starting, just a little mini one with just 7 episodes. Yeah, and I hope it inspires you possibly into working with what's on your desk for 7 days. So thanks very much for joining me, and I will see you again soon. Thanks, En.